Opera has always played a key part in pop culture and society, being one of the longest-standing art forms. From the likes of Maria Callas and Pavarotti to today in 2026, when opera is being interwoven in the top 40 charts, from the likes of FKA Twigs to Rosalia's work on Lux. Opera, like many art forms before it, seems to be going through its modern resurgence, and I am well and truly loving it. Pinterest reported last year that search terms such as opera aesthetic was a rising trend on the platform, with search terms such as opera core, opera outfits for women, and Phantom of the Opera outfit ideas seeing huge search increases. Users were pinning vintage gowns from the 30s, 50s and 60s in particular, and looked at party planning and decor ideas as much as they were seeking fashion inspiration. Today's listeners are looking for innovation and authenticity. They don't want the cookie-cutter, squeaky-clean pop star and pop music. They want someone who's expressing their true human emotions and putting their whole being into their art. Opera as an art form has always stood out for this reason. It offers a life-amplified experience, combining powerful, unamplified human voices with dramatic stories and orchestral music. As well as this, opera has always been hugely political and acted as pieces of social commentary. For instance, Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro was notoriously political for its critique of the aristocracy, even being banned in certain areas for a time. Is it really surprising that in the time of political upheaval and division, an art form built on human emotion mixed with politics is on the rise again? When Rosalia was a kid, her grandmother used to play Maria Callas and Pavarotti around the house. I think she would have liked me to be an opera singer, Rosalia told NPR a few years ago. When Lux came out last autumn, I think she finally fulfilled her grandma's wish. Lux is one of the best albums I have ever heard in my 23 years. It's full of operatic excellence. With Rosalia working directly with the London Symphony Orchestra, Rosalia is an interesting example for this modern resurgence, because Lux doesn't sound like it's just an opera album. It's not a Maria Callas impression. It's a combination of Rosalia's love for classical operatic sounds mixed with her love for culture and learning, hence the use of 13 languages and also a combination of genres, with her Brit performance merging techno into classical operatic first single from Lux, Berghain. It's Rosalia feeling inspired and making those inspirations her own. It's not opera music in the traditional sense that you might hear at the opera. It's reimagined and the front-runner poster child of this modern resurgence of opera. Rosalia is not the only artist merging opera into the modern music soundscape and reimagining opera in their music. Another name that comes to mind is Ray. She truly collects a huge range of inspirations throughout her music. The huge smash hit Where Is My Husband isn't hugely inspired by opera, more jazz and R&B, which I do think Ray is leading the jazz resurgence, which we also are seeing happening in music. However, she taps into her classical training on songs such as the new Nightingale Lane, Ice Cream Man from 21st Century Blues, and Oscar-winning Tears from the same album, showcasing her show-stopping vocals while doing so. As well as this, she always performs with an orchestra supporting her, with people specifically praising her 2025 Glastonbury performance for how it felt like an operatic pop show. Again, Ray's pillars in her music are similar to that of Rosalia, and why people flock to the opera. The bass line is human emotion. Ray has detailed things such as her struggle with mental health and an eating disorder on her music, as well as the song Environmental Anxiety being a direct criticism of the current political landscape, another pillar that opera has at its core as well. People want to see their emotions and struggles explored in art. Opera and this resurgence in music does exactly that for the listener or viewer. Beyoncé as well has lightly experimented with inspiration from an Italian opera for the ballad from Cowboy Carter, Daughter, and her sister Solange has said she's currently working on writing an opera. Another artist who has publicly said how she would love to write an opera one day is FKA Twigs, who is also my earliest example of this modern resurgence in opera, starting with her 2019 album Magdalene. There's many moments on the album where we can hear her inspiration from traditional opera, but the main one would be the heart-wrenching cellophane. which encompasses Twig's beautiful classical vocals with an eerie piano coming in sporadically. It's emotive and brings me to tears on most listens. Again, the common through line between the artists mentioned is what is at the core of their music, is also at the core of the opera. Human emotion and expression is again what people want to see in both their pop artists and when they go to the opera. The press director for New York City's Metropolitan Opera House says that popular music draws on opera historically, perhaps more than one may realise. In fact, when opera was in its heyday in the late 19th century, it was the pop music of the time. And opera in pop music isn't a trend, it's been there all along. However, it is truly refreshing to see these sounds be more at the forefront of pop music, with the artists spearheading the movement taking inspiration from opera and classical music to help them express their humanity. While pop music has always been built on those that came before them, and the sound that came before them as well, now you truly can't escape opera and classical orchestral sounds in modern music, and it's beautiful and refreshing to see. The modern spin on these sounds is also extremely refreshing, with it truly feeling like the Resurgence is building on the groundwork of traditional opera and classical music, not just copying it exactly. As I mentioned earlier, opera has always been inherently political. It remains a vessel for social commentary and political content. Beethoven's only opera was inspired by real events and persons in the French Revolution. And then there's Dialogues of the Carmelites, a devastatingly moving depiction of the political persecution and execution of the nuns during the French Revolution's reign of terror. In times of upheaval and political turmoil, people have and will continue to turn to the arts, and opera is one of the biggest vessels that reflects this. The modern resurgence of opera has come at an interesting time politically, with the world being truly more divided than ever and the rich upper class, like the orange buffoon in the White House, starting wars. People are looking for escapism and a vessel for their frustration. Could this be why people, individuals and artists are turning to opera and classical music? Take Rosalia's Lux album for example. It is a highly artistic, historically and politically inspired piece of art, focusing on figures like Saint Rose of Lima and Sufi mystic Rabia, as well as Rosalia's time-reading feminist theory in the creation of this album. It critiques God and the Catholic religion on songs such as God is a Stalker, and talks about the rise of sexism within modern dating on La Perla, to name a few of its more political moments. And again, FKA Twigs' Magdalene album was directly political, standing as a statement on the treatment of women throughout history, being directly inspired by the story of Mary Magdalene, who was one of Jesus' disciples and has been historically named as a prostitute and a sinful woman. FKA Twigs at this time was facing a lot of unjust criticism as a woman in music, specifically about her relationship with Robert Pattinson at the time, being the victim of a lot of racist hate. The album was her reclamation of her femininity and power. Again, as mentioned earlier, she used a lot of classical and operatic inspired vocal techniques and production on this track, compared to her other work. Opera seems to directly be the medium of expression when human emotion is about to boil over and the political landscape is an uneasy one. It is beyond exciting to see this revival and modern resurgence of the opera genre. I have always found myself being a huge fan of opera and classical music, especially that of the late Maria Callas. However, the virtual popularity has been fueling real-life attendance shifts at the opera too. The average age for single ticket buyers at the Met Opera over the past few years has decreased from 57 to 44. With more pop stars making opera an accessible part of top 40 music, an institution like the Met Opera is thrilled by how it is helping keep the medium alive, with a representative for the Met saying, "It's incredible to hear so many pop singers weaving operatic elements into their sound and performance. Today's listeners are drawn to authenticity and innovation. Rosalia's album Lux is such a great example of that authenticity, and we're here for it." And so are myself and many music fans around the globe.